going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be diving into Mel Kiper and Field Yates' 2025 three-round NFL mock draft, and I'm happy they did 3 rounds because I hate doing mock drafts when they only have, 2 rounds, for example, and the Vikings only have 1 pick. So we got 2 picks to dive into on today's show, but let me ask you guys this here first. Who will be the draft pick at pick number 24 for the Minnesota Vikings? Not who you want, but if you had to give your best prediction right now, who do you think Kwesi and this front office are taking at pick number 24? If I had to give my answer, if I had to put money on it, I would go Nicky Minwari. But you guys let me know. Who will the Vikings draft at pick 24? All right, let's just fly through the first 23 picks here. So no shocker here in Kiper and Yates 3-round mock draft. They went Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell. I think this is going to be the consensus top 4 picks, and I think this is what's going to happen. But then we get to pick number 5 here. They had Mason Graham going to the Jags, Ashton Genty to the Raiders, Armin Membu to the Jets, and Jalen Walker to the Carolina Panthers. And then the second quarterback goes off the board at pick number 9, where they had Shedeur Sanders going to the New Orleans Saints. And then I will say, from a Vikings fan perspective here, I'll be a little sick if the Chicago Bears got Tyler Warren. I think that guy's going to be a stud. I'd rather have the Bears get Genty over Warren, because I think if you had him, Cole Kmet with that Bears offense, it would be nasty. But they had the Bears getting Tyler Warren, then Calvin Banks to San Francisco, Matthew Golden to Dallas, and then Will Johnson. I know a lot of Vikings fans wanted him, but the Michigan corner went to Miami. And then Colson Loveland, big fan of his. As you guys know, he went to the Indianapolis Colts. And then Mike Green to Atlanta. Jahdae Barron went off the board at pick number 16. And then another Vikings draft target, Walter Nolan, went to the Bengals at pick number 17. And then Gray Zabel. Honestly, everybody on the board right here besides Hampton was a Vikings draft target. But Zabel to Seattle. Nicky Minwari went to Tampa Bay. Then Amari and Hampton went to Denver. So then the Vikings, as we get closer, another defensive tackle off the board as the Pittsburgh Steelers take Derek Harmon. And then the Los Angeles Chargers, bit of a shocker here that they had them going receiver, but they got Emeka Buka out of Ohio State. Big fan of his game. And then our division rival, the Green Bay Packers, take Shamar Stewart. Tons of upside. Freak athlete, but the production really wasn't there for Shamar Stewart at Texas A&M, so I'd be cool with the Packers taking him, if I'm being honest. But, not a big fan of the Bears getting Tyler Warren. Hopefully a team takes him before pick number 10 in the 2025 NFL Draft. So where does that leave the Minnesota Vikings? Pick number 24, and this was Mel Kiper's pick. He had the Vikings drafting Ohio State offensive guard Donovan Jackson. So no D tackle, no corner, no safety here for the Minnesota Vikings. They had them going offensive guard, and it's an interesting pick. But I'm also a big fan of this pick because you solidify that left guard spot. He does have some tackle versatility, and I think this would give the Vikings much-needed depth at that offensive line. You already improved it during free agency. Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and this would be the cherry on top if Donovan Jackson's the choice at 24. But this is what Kiper had to say, saying the Vikings knew they had to address the interior this offseason and went out and signed guard Will Fries and center Ryan Kelly. But Jackson would represent an upgrade over Blake Brandel at the other guard spot. Jackson has some really strong movement traits. And, yeah, he 100% would be an upgrade over Blake Brandel. As he was a 6th-round pick out of Oregon State, should have been a swing tackle. But if this is your offensive line heading into the next season, and if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you want to lean, into the run game, into that physical, offensive identity that clearly Kevin O'Connell's talked about it this offseason. He wants to be a more physical team. And if you ran out this 5-man unit of Darrison O'Neal at the tackle spot, you got Donovan Jackson, the rookie at the left guard, then you got the veterans from Indianapolis and Ryan Kelly, Will Fries. This is a very, very good unit, if not a top 5 unit in the entire league. But Donovan Jackson this past season, in 2024, overall grade 71.8, pass block grade 70 flat, run block 70.3, 2 sacks allowed, and 2 penalties. Now, this guy, he posted also a really good RAS score as well, coming at 6'3", 315 pounds, big body, had 32 reps on bench press, which was high up there compared to his other classmates. And he also had a freaky vertical leap, 32.5 inches. So the athleticism is definitely there for Donovan Jackson. But Dane Brugler, NFL draft analyst, had this to say on Donovan Jackson. I want to share with you guys, saying long considered an interior prospect by NFL teams. His left tackle tape, though, was better than what he showed at left guard, forcing NFL teams to reevaluate his best positional fit. Though not an overpowering drive blocker, Jackson moves well out of his stance with the flexibility, length, strength combination to latch and occupy defenders with his hands. His processing gradually improved each season, and he didn't look like a fish out of water in space. Overall, Jackson's sustain and recovery hiccups may be addressed by an NFL coaching staff, but his athletic traits and play strength should translate well to the next level. He projects as an NFL starter, and his tape shows a power with true tackle guard versatility. Now, honestly, and a big reason why I'm such a fan of this pickup for the Vikings is, you could float in or just put in Donovan Jackson, left guard. There's your 5-man unit. But also, this will give the Vikings some Brian O'Neill insurance, where let's just say O'Neill, getting up there in age, has dealt with some injuries in the past. You're going to need to address that right tackle spot eventually. And maybe if O'Neill has a bad year, Vikings try to cut him or, make a decision on him next offseason, then at least you have a guy who could go compete at that right tackle spot in the future. Now, the versatility of Donovan Jackson definitely is the most intriguing part of his game. Can play guard, can play tackle at a very high level, but I would also love if you just spot start left guard for the Vikes. But, right now it's Blake Brandel starting at left guard, and we definitely saw Brandel's game play better when Christian Darrisaw was in the lineup, and that's just natural. You got better people around you, better teammates. Your game's going to be elevated. But, I'm sure the Vikings are comfortable with rolling Blake Brandel out there at left guard. Now, is that their ideal scenario? Maybe not. So it does make some sense that they would try to target it in round one. But what about Walter Rouse? Now, we have kind of heard some reporting that he and Blake Brandel will compete at the left guard. So he was drafted as an offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, 6th-round pick last season. I could see him competing with Brandel if the Vikings go in a different direction in round one. But I think if Donovan Jackson is the choice, I also don't think that just guarantees he's, spot start left guard. I think you would have to compete with Brandel, and then you at least just gave yourself some insurance if, like, Darrisaw, he needs a week or two coming back from that torn ACL, MCL, even though he's supposed to be ready to go for the start of the season. So I'm a big fan of this pick, but you guys grade it for me. Be the teacher on this one. A, B, C, D, or F down below in the comments section. I'm going to have to give this one – I'll just give this a solid B. I really, really like the pick. Would I rather go Nicky Minwari 100% or a defensive tackle? But the way Kiper and Yates did their mock draft, they were having those guys fly off the board. So if the board falls the way it did and they like Donovan Jackson, I would like it. Maybe I wouldn't love it as much as another draft prospect, but I would give this a B. But you guys let me know. Grade the pick of Donovan Jackson if that's the decision from the Vikings front office at pick number 24. Now we'll dive into their 3rd-round selection for the Vikes here in a second. But first, I got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Now, Game Time, they have last-minute deals, and it saves you up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater shows, etc. They have it covered over there at Game Time. And Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard-to-get playoff seats. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. And with the Lakers, LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves coming to Minneapolis for Game 3, if you guys want to get a ticket for that matchup, make sure you guys use the Game Time app, and you guys can get $20 off if you plug in that promo code ChatSports. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed, but massive shout out to Game Time for sponsoring today's show, the #1 ticket purchasing app out there. Trust me, you guys won't regret it. Give them a chance. And you guys will be a big fan of it. But got that link for you guys in the comments section and description of today's show. Shout out to Game Time for sponsoring today's edition of Vikings Now by Chat Sports. All right, so we finally got a second selection in a mock draft. It feels good as most of these are 2-round mocks, and Vikings only got one pick at 24. But we do hit round 3 here, and we address the safety position at pick number 97 as Field Yates had the Vikings drafting Oklahoma safety Billy Bowman Jr. First off, fantastic name. Passes the name test for a safety at the next level. Billy Bowman Jr. I can already see myself chanting that out during our watch parties this year. But this is actually Field Yates' selection, and here is his reasoning for the Vikings drafting the Oklahoma safety. Saying Minnesota lost Cameron Bynum in free agency, and Harrison Smith is 36, but the team can add a football vacuum in Bowman late on day 2. Bowman had 11 picks over the past 3 seasons, and I agree with Field Yates. Like, it would be good to have that insurance. Even though I'm a big fan of Theo Jackson, I think he's going to step up and play some great football for the Vikings next season. But still, after losing Cameron Bynum and Harrison Smith being 36, most likely only have one more year left, adding a safety makes a whole lot of sense. Now, here's how his RAS scores shook out. Physical freak. He is just a little undersized. Like, he comes in at 5'8", 192 pounds, so a smaller safety. He's got some versatility there. 40-yard dash time, 4.42 seconds, which was great, one of the highest in his class compared to his rest of his classmates there. But then also vertical leap, 35 inches, broad jump, pretty solid as well. So I wouldn't mind this pick for the Vikings whatsoever. And plus, if you have if you get a guy like Billy Bowman, I think that's just great insurance in that secondary. But also his coverage stats from this past season. Was targeted 32 times, only gave up 18 completions, did give up 4 touchdowns over the top, but only 131 yards there, 5 PBUs, 2 interceptions, QB rating of 79.6, and just his overall, very productive throughout his collegiate career at Oklahoma. And, I think with how the Vikings are kind of shaking out like their safety room right now, clearly they have a lot of faith in Theo Jackson. But let's just say like Harrison Smith has to miss some time. Let's just say Josh Metellus has to miss some time. Adding another versatile safety who could also hop down, play some nickel for you, could be extremely advantageous for Brian Flores and what he wants to do. But this is what Dane Brugler had to say on Billy Bowman Jr., saying with his range, fluidity, and post-snap diagnosing skills, Bowman anticipates well in coverage to drive and finish at the football, and he's a threat to score every time he touches the ball. Though physical in run support, he is often overzealous with his angles and finish, and his small margin for error as a tackler leads to negative results. Overall, Bowman falls short in the size and strength categories, but he is among one of the best safeties in his class in terms of football IQ, movement skills, and competitive urgency. His disruptive versatility on the back end will force teams to consider how much they are willing to compromise on desired size. So, listen, I like this pick. I don't love this pick. I would rather have the Vikings go D-tackle in the 3rd round, considering you took Donovan Jackson in round 1 in this mock. I would rather have them go D-tackle. It's a very deep defensive tackle draft class. And, listen, Hargrave and Allen, fantastic. They're going to be great for a 1 or 2 year run here. But behind them, the only really young guy you have is a guy like Jalen Redmond. I would want the Vikings to take advantage of this year's draft class and go get one of the better defensive tackles in this class. But we'll see how it plays out here on draft night. So I like this pick. I don't love it. Would rather have the Vikings go a different position here. But, again, it all comes down to just whoever you think is the best player, especially where the Vikings are at. You can just go BPA. But I'll ask you guys this. Would you like this draft if it was Donovan Jackson in round 1 and then Billy Bowman Jr. in round 3 at pick number 97? Would you like it? Give me a Y for yes or give me an N for no. You guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. And just a friendly reminder here, we will be going live for the entire 2025 NFL Draft. So hit that subscribe button. Don't miss a thing around your Minnesota Vikings, and tune in for all 3 days. We'll be live breaking it down here on the channel. And we'll see you guys next time. As always, Skol Vikes.